I built this table around, I think it's around 6 years ago now. And when I built it, I never intended for it to be something that would stick around for so long. The reason for building it was because I'd just finished building the first house that I ever built for myself, the first sort of house I built for my own use. And that building ended up costing way more than I planned for it to cost. And sort of all through the build, I'd planned at the end to go and buy nice furniture, nice sofas, nice dining table, and sort of be able to do that whole process of finishing the build and then kitting out the house with sort of furniture and things that I liked. But what happened was, by the time I finished the project, I just had borrowed way more money from the bank to actually build the house, and I couldn't borrow any more money from them, and I didn't have any money of my own to go and buy furniture. So I managed to get a couple of sofas from some people that I knew, and they was getting new furniture, so they gave me a couple of sofas and a few other pieces, like a few chairs and things. But a dining table I didn't have, and I'd built this house, and it had a big open plan kitchen and a really nice big area for like a dining table. So I really wanted to have that experience of the oversized dining table that you could get maybe 10 people around. But yeah, I just couldn't even afford a regular dining table, certainly not like a big sort of extravagant one. So I had some wood left from the build, because it was like a timber house, and not like not one of these sort of log cabin type timber houses, but the house was built with just like construction grade timber. So when I was finished, I had a few planks left that were just like laying around, buried under the snow and stuff like that. And I couldn't return them because they'd been outside and I had some marks and some damage and stuff. So I used those planks. I thought, I'll just build a tabletop of some sort. Then at least I've got somewhere to sit and eat, and something that I can use seeing as I can't afford to buy one. So I got the planks, and I used 4 planks, and they was pretty long. Maybe they might have been around 4 meters long, but they were just regular planks. So I just got those, and I didn't have any joinery tools or even any sort of skills in joinery and stuff. So I just lined the planks up, and I used like a router blade to cut into the side so you can join the planks together. I didn't have a biscuit joiner, so this way it does the same thing, but it's just a router blade that goes in and spins, and the blade cuts into the side. So like if this is the plank, you can cut into the side, so then when you connect them together, they don't move up and down from each other. So I managed to do that with the things I had. I had a couple of old router pieces that I could use for that. So that was what I did to join them. And then I didn't have any clamps or anything to squeeze the planks and clamp them together. So I had these long screws. The planks are around 220 millimeters wide, I think. So I've got these 300 millimeter screws. And once I put the groove in the side and put the biscuits in the glue, I just screwed through these really long screws through the side of one plank and into the other. So it would kind of pull the planks together and keep them tight while the glue set. So I did that. And I made the table 4 planks wide. And I think it was around 4 meters long. It was a pretty long table. And then it was just plain construction wood, so the finish wasn't very nice, the colour wasn't very nice. So I painted it with like a thin layer of white paint, and then I painted it with a layer of grey paint over the top of that. And then I sanded that down like unevenly. So I started to sand it down, and heavier and lighter in different places. And then what happened was, like, the grey wore through to the white, and then in places I sanded even heavier, and then the white wore through to the wood. So you had this kind of like worn out, rustic kind of look to the table, even though it was like newly built. It just gave it a bit more character and made it look a little bit more pleasing than how it just was. And it also gave it a reasonably good wipeable surface, so you could at least keep it hygienic, because we was going to be eating off it, and so you could still wipe it over and stuff like that. So I did that. I had some sawhorses that I'd been using through the project, and I just painted those up with a slightly different colour, and they became the table legs. And then had this pretty nice, usable dining table, but it certainly wasn't of any quality. I mean, anyone that was makes furniture. There's no way they would use that type of low quality of timber to build a table with, because it's just going to twist and move, and it's just not good enough quality for that. And I mean, that's exactly what's happened. This table now, the planks have twisted. Some of them have sort of bowed underwards and some have bowed upwards. So when you look at it from the end, it's got this kind of wave to it. It's not flat on the top in any way. But these are the things that after building this table, I come to realise that it's nice to build nice things, and if you can build them to a very high standard, then why not? But actually, what's happened with this table now is I've had it for so long that it's actually got memories and history with it now, even though it's not the nicest built thing, and it was never intended to be around for so long. Anyway, so after finishing the first house and building it, I had this table in that house for a while, and then after about a year, plans changed and money became a bit stressful, and there was an opportunity to sell the house and sort of make a bit of a better financial situation. So I sold that house, and then I managed to buy like a smaller plot of land and started getting the plans together to build a second house, which is this house that I'm sitting in at the moment. This house is like half the size of the first house. So when I started, I thought, okay, I'm not going to go down that same road again of getting to the end and having a ton of debt and really being stretched financially. So I'm going to build a smaller house, and by the end of it, it should be a way more comfortable situation. And then I'll go back to the idea of maybe buying some nice furniture and finishing the house in the way that I kind of wanted to the first time around. So I started on the second house around about 2019, and then like 6 months into the build was when started to get the COVID situation started to take hold. And although I didn't have a particularly bad experience with it, I was very fortunate in that way. But what was happening was the cost of everything, as everybody knows, the cost of living, everything just was increasing and going up. And also the cost of raw building materials was just going up like weekly, or almost daily at some points. I was lucky enough through that period a couple of times for where some of the place where I was getting the material from, they knew I was building a house, and a couple of times they would call me and say, you should order the next wave of material today, because tomorrow morning we're going to get like a new updated price on some of this material, and if you order it today, then the price that we tell you today is the price that you'll get to keep, even if the prices go up tomorrow. So I was fortunate in that way, but I couldn't order all the material because it was just too much of a commitment for me anyway. I just wasn't good enough to plan that in advance to that level. So inevitably, the cost of everything going up meant that by the time I'd finished this house, it actually ended up costing almost exactly the same price as the first house that I built, even though it was half the size. So I got to the end of this project, and I had big loans again from the bank, had no money left, and I couldn't afford to buy any furniture again. But what I'd done is when I moved out the first house, this table, I brought it with me because I just had to clear the house out. But I didn't plan to ever use it again, really, in any kind of way. So I thought what I'll do is just bring it with me and leave it outside. And then during the build, I might just put it up outside somewhere, so that if we get any nice weather, there's somewhere for me and the people that are working here to sit outside and just eat lunch and stuff. But if it gets, if the table will get rained on and the weather will get to it, and it won't stand up against the weather very well probably, but it doesn't matter because I'll just use it for as long as we want it for, and then when I'm done I'll just chuck it on the fire and it'll burn away and that'll be that. But as I say, by the time I got to the end of building this house, it cost so much money that I didn't have any money again to go and buy any furniture, and I hadn't actually used this table during the build for like outside use. It had just been sort of, I came here, started building the house, I sort of put it on the ground somewhere, and it just stayed there during the process of the build. And actually during that build, that build went all the way through a few seasons. So I had the summer, but then it went on, and I was actually still building it through the winter. So the snow came, this table was outside, just piled up with the building materials. It got buried in snow. I mean, it got rained on for months at the beginning of the winter. Then the winter actually came in and it got buried in snow and sort of frozen in ice. And then spring come around And by the time I wanted to use it, I knew where it was. I waited for the snow to melt to some level and then sort of dug it out. And yeah, it was sort of it got wet in the autumn and then frozen in the winter, so it was sort of full of water and covered in ice and stuff. But I just brought it inside. Thought I'll let it just thaw out and defrost, and then I see how it is. I still had the sawhorses because I'd been using them for the building. While I was building this house, I was using them sawhorses for the work, so they got some fairly heavy use, but I still had them. And I don't even think I bothered repainting them. I just got those sawhorses, defrosted the table, and the area for the dining table in this house was way smaller, so I had to actually cut the ends off the table and then re-screw it to the sawhorses. And even that, I didn't do it with any real sort of care or effort. I just had fairly long screws, just drilled a hole through the top of the table and sort of drilled the screws down into the sawhorses. All the while thinking that it's not really a long-term thing, but I just wanted a table, or needed a table to use in the moment. So that's what I did. I sanded the table down a little bit. I didn't even need to repaint it actually. I just sanded it down to make the surface a little bit nicer because it had been outside for almost a couple of years at this point. And screwed it to the sawhorses, sort of give it a bit of a wipe over and started using it. And that was almost 2 years ago now. And I've been using this table every day since. And I guess what it sort of taught me is that it's nice to build nice things and to do things to the sort of best of your ability, but not everything requires that, and it's not maybe worth doing that for everything that you're going to build. I mean, this table, it's put together in a bit of a rough way. It's not flat. Anyone who does furniture or makes furniture would look at it and criticise it heavily because it's just not up to any kind of joinery standard. And yet I've had it for, I don't know, maybe around 5-6 years now. And it's, it's like bulletproof. I use it for everything. I'm using it for doing this work, so it gets some oil on it. I use it if I have to do paint stuff. I just put stuff on it. I don't even bother covering it over. I just put stuff on it, do the painting. It's got some dots and some marks of paint on it from other things I've done. And then, and if it gets to the point where it looks really bad, I just sand it down a little bit, and I can even put another layer of paint on it, sand it back again, and just bring it back to life that way. But it effectively cost me nothing. It's got zero value, so I just don't have to be precious about it. But ironically, it's become one of the sort of most favourite things that I've ever worked on or built, because just the amount of use I've got with it. I've sat here so many times with sort of friends and family, and had meals and sort of celebrated birthdays and things like that. I'm out often working on projects, and every project I do, I try and push it to the best standard I can and sort of strive for that kind of perfection. And when I'm working in people's houses and people are paying me for work and projects, then I have to obviously do it that way. But I just wanted to say this because if you're watching this video or you watch other content and you've got any interest or thoughts about building something, please don't get caught up on the need to make things perfect. But yeah, if you are interested in building anything, then I would say just do it, just build it, and don't get too critical on yourself or too caught up in if it's any good or not. I mean, if you're happy with it and it works for what you want it to work for, then that's about all you need to think about. The two houses that I built, like this one that I'm still currently living in, and the first one I built, I might make a video about those in the future, or in the near future, just to talk about them a little bit. They were sort of interesting projects for me, and sort of two of the biggest projects that I've done on my own. I'd just like to talk about that a little. I'd like to talk about those a little bit and put that content out there, because if anyone is thinking about or curious about building their own home, then you might be able to get something from that to give you a few ideas of sort of which direction to go in and how that process works. But as I say, I'm not going to tell people what to do or not to do, but I maybe just have a bit of input that might help you answer a few questions that you might have about that sort of stuff. And then with the new builds, the cost saving element is really impacted by the design and the approach to the design of the house you're going to build. So I would say that if anyone's thinking of building their own home or building a house, and you don't have any experience of that, again, with the architects, it's really beneficial to get some input from maybe someone like myself who's been involved with the budget and the spending and the building, because they're going to have an idea of what is expensive, where you can save money. Maybe whereas like the architect's perspective is maybe motivated by the architectural merit of what you're trying to achieve. And that's it. And so I really want to steer this channel towards building and focusing on the building rather than being about me personally as an individual. That's really what I would like to do and what I've sort of hoped to do from the beginning, just to kind of use the experience that I've got and I've had to maybe help others and just create a bit of a community with this channel so that people can use it as a bit of a resource for building or projects and stuff like that.